of what we're doing. And then the meat of the program is going to be Stacy and Katie. So my role with the Granite YMCA is that I'm the Director of Strategies and Partnerships. And the reason that we're at the table here, we've always done character development, but in our strategic plan, we are making a real concerted effort to work on resiliency. And I oversee that area, and Katie and Stacy do the majority of the work in it. And just what's happened in the past couple of years since we've started the strategic plan, we all know that it's just skyrocketed. So it's become a huge part of the work that we're doing. Stacy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Kim. I'm Stacy Neville. I'm the executive director at the YMCA in Londonderry, part of the big Granite Y. And for the last 15 years, most of my job has been, before I was the executive director, I oversaw all child care programs. So I've been working with infants through high school kids in various, rec programs and things like that for the last 15 years. So, kind of increasing some of these character traits in youth to hopefully have a better outlook on life when they get to those teen years is kind of where my focus has been. And our character development program is one I've been kind of carrying for the Y for the last 4 years we've been doing it. So.
And I am Katie Soul. My current role is as the Association Director of Childcare and Day Camp Services. And what that really means is that I get to work across all of the 6 Granite Y branches and help support their early learning, school age, and day camp programming. My background comes from mostly early childhood, which then sprouted an interest in training the people that are working with kids, recognizing that, and we're trying to talk, most of our conversation today is going to be around this, is that in order to be effective with kids, we have to have people who have toolboxes to be able to meet the challenges of working with them. And so, yeah, that's how I play into this. And I provide a lot of the training, which we'll get into.
So I assume you all can read on who the Granite Y is, but I will say we were 5 branches. We just added the Concord Y, which has been a really good addition for us. We do have a boys and girls camp, overnight camps. We serve 32 communities right now, but through our resilience work and definitely through our health intervention work, we're expanding and doing more statewide work. So I can see where this may expand further. We do partner with a few other Ys that are in New Hampshire, and we're also moving north where there's high need with some of our programming. Go ahead, Katie. There's a couple of objectives that we're hoping that you get out of this in true training fashion. We're hoping you'll be able to define what character development is as a vehicle for resiliency. For us, mostly in youth, but also in adults as well. And that you'll be able to identify some positive activities and actions to implement in programs and relationships. When we got involved with the resiliency work, we knew we had to come up with a statement for what we stood for and what it meant to us. We put a lot of work and effort into this document, and we're more than happy to share it with anybody to use. So we were able to identify who we are in the resilience movement. I don't need to read that to you. You can read it and you'll get this. But then all these words in the building as you go higher in the house are things that we look at when we're analyzing, are we doing a good job? And aside from the character development and other tools, these words are words we look at and say, are we able to integrate this into what we're doing in our members and our youth and the communities we're working in getting these tools? Go ahead, Katie. So why the Y? The Y is all about positive youth development settings. Almost from our inception, we were about building, from our inception, we were about building relationships. That's how we got started. And then it just continued and continued. And when we got into the childcare business, we didn't just do childcare. We also we were all about providing positive experiences for kids. So how do we get them to attain those? I was on the last presentation I was on was Pine Tree, and they talked about the developmental assets. Ys have been doing developmental assets for a long time, partnering with the Search Institute. This particular Y has not worked on it, and it's part of our plan in 2023 to integrate it pretty heavily in what we do. along with our character development. So when you have strong youth, if we can give them tools when they're young, then they're going to be strong contributors when they get older. And I don't need to talk about ACEs because that's been gone on. I don't need to read that, I don't think, right? You've read that and you know that from previous work. I'm going to turn it over to Stacy now, who's going to talk. Go ahead, Katie. Go ahead, Stace.
So the Y took on this character development kind of rehaul a few years ago with some of the programming that they did, which is where our new character development program came from. And this is where they started with some of the research on social emotional learning impacts, which I'm sure we're all aware of different things, but I love the way that they kind of put these out there, and we put them out there to our younger staff to say, here's why we're doing this. So kids are 4 times more likely to have a sense of purpose in their life if they're given good character skills. 5 times more likely at being good at making plans. I know to some people that doesn't sound like it's a huge thing, but really to be a well-rounded person, it is going to be important. 17 times more likely to take responsibility for their actions, and 21 times more likely to manage their emotions well. That's one of the huge ones, and obviously a huge statistic as well, that it is something that we've in our character work, we've been very intentional about kind of leading with some of those emotions and kind of how you manage and how you work through some of those things. And kind of one of our objectives at the beginning was 75% of youth today in a study that was done are bored, tired, and stressed out. And since the Y serves 9 million youth across the country, they figured the goal was kind of be to try to shift that with all the people that we work with, to say that they are now happy, energized, and really excited about their future and excited about making plans and the kind of reaching for the stars.
So before Katie and Stacy get into the deep dive about what character development is, I want to just give you a little summary of the history. So in the early 90s, the 4 core values of caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility were launched by the YMCA of the USA. Each of those colors means something. There's a story that goes with each of those words. We're not going to get into all of that too much today. That's pretty simple. But these were created as cornerstones of what we do in our organization and the youth that we work with. As a matter of fact, the Granite Y's mission statement, I want to read it to you, is the Granite YMCA creates a community where all are welcome and builds a healthy spirit, mind, and body based on the values of caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility. So not only do we integrate that in all of our youth programs, but our boards know about it, our staff know about it, our members know about it. And I've worked for associations that every decision we made, we looked at those 4 core words to make sure we were meeting the mission of our organization. We still do that. We're still very intentional in this work. But then in 2016, the National Y received a $20 million grant to take it a step further. And the Granite Y was part of that pilot process, and Stacy actually led that whole movement and contributed to the Character Development Learning Institute. So she's the one that's going to do the presentation on that. We can move on.
Yeah, so we were chosen as one of 3 Ys in the country to start and pilot the program out, and then it went out to now we're nationwide with the program. It was really kind of trial and testing some of the new character stuff and see how it fits best. The big difference is we still lead with those core values. In our association, we also add courage to our core values. But it really is based on the adult and building adult capacities so that they're role modeling these things and giving kids opportunities to kind of be engaged and really engaging in a relationship with caring and competent adults to really help them succeed. So this is just kind of how we measured our progress along the way, because obviously we know, there's nothing without being able to measure if you're actually, turning the needle or anything like that. So just to give you an idea of how kind of the program was, assessed at first. Obviously, there was tons of capacity assessment. We started very small in one program and then extended to 3 programs and then went to our whole association after that. We had a plan, work towards our goals, and really a lot of our data and our measurement is coming from assessments from youth parent surveys, kind of individual assessments of programming and things like that. And really, if we feel that the kids, you know, build off the 5 areas that we're going to talk about in a minute. And then as we went along the way, any of the, you know, assessments we got back, or if we didn't feel like people were understanding in certain areas, we went back and kind of reassessed the plan and continued on. So an overview of kind of what it was, and I'll talk a lot about the, you know, the CDLI, which is just the Character Development Learning Institute. Why I like to use abbreviations for everything, even though nobody understands them but us. So, but really that was just the whole process itself of developing this program. So kind of the set of values to kind of be able to develop these systems in work and in life, and then how to pass them off to other people. And really they started with the development of these practices in out of school time. They define out of school time not just as after school programs, but anytime the child is not in the school building. So it can be the swim lesson rec program, or, you know, the youth group that they do, or, you know, any of those kind of things. That's anything that they do during that time. And that they're going to kind of pick up the character skills and traits necessary to kind of reach their full potential. And youth character development will be enhanced significantly nationwide by these practices, was kind of the whole vision behind this. So these are the 5 areas that the Y focuses on. So emotion management, responsibility, personal development, relationship building, and empathy. So those were the 5 key areas that the Y identified as kind of making a well-rounded, you know, character building person. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of different things we can put into when it comes to social emotional learning, but breaking them down into these 5 areas, that was a little easier for people to see, with then specific objectives and tasks, and really picking one of these. What we did is we focus on one a month so that we can be very intentional about each one. It also helps kind of build a little bit more of, you know, a kind of well-rounded, both adults that are, you know, working with these kids, as well as the kids themselves. So a little kind of deeper dive on each of the 5 areas. So these are kind of just the definitions of them. I'm going to go through them briefly, but emotion management, like I talked about before, really having kids be able to manage their emotions, understand their emotions, be able to speak about their emotions. And I will say something that we thought was interesting in this is we were thinking about it from the kid level, and we've used this more at the adult level and the teen level than, you know, ever before with some of our, you know, teen and adult staff. So kind of giving them the skills to be able to do that too. Empathy, how kind of youth and how adults kind of work with youth and relate to others, and an acceptance. It is tough to teach, but through kind of the building of relationships. I apologize if you can hear my singing clock in the background. It is singing Christmas music. So empathy, kind of understanding and teaching people skills to kind of be empathetic to each other. And in this day and age, we know, you know, how important that is to have specific skills of how kids can do that, and how adults can do that, and how adults can model that for people. Personal development, that's my favorite one, because I feel like every time we're, you know, trying to work on things with kids, that I feel like is always one of the things that, oh, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. And I really think it's so important for kids to be able to have something that they're working towards, and somebody being able to kind of give them the steps to help them kind of understand along the way, the process, revisiting the process, and how to celebrate, you know, those small wins along the way as well. So that obviously is based on goal setting and, you know, achieving, you know, very, very simple to also, you know, kind of stretch your bigger goals in life. Relationship building is the base work for all of this. We've been doing relationship building like everyone has, you know, for years, but really creating that community team and really kind of making the kids feel like they're included and that they're a part of things. And if you don't have the good relationship building from the start, you're not going to be able to get to some of those other level things that you really want to get to. And the last one was responsibility. So kind of developing youth to be reliable, committed, and fulfill all their obligations, but also to kind of understand what their responsibilities are and how they can be responsible for themselves, the world around them, other people, kind of on a bigger scale than just the very basic, oh, that's your responsibility to, you know, clean up your own stuff and things like that. So really taking it on more of our global responsibility as well, and being a good friend, a good, you know, community member, and things like that. So that's kind of where we go with that one. So real quick, you're going to do a couple just quick activities. So I'll say our character development training with those 5 areas, although I went over them in 5 minutes, and we'll do a couple different, activities quickly. Our character development training that we do for our staff is about 3.5 hours, and we go through each one. We have examples, we have some good videos that break them all down and things like that. If anyone ever wants to do something like that, I love to talk about character development, for hours. So, but giving the examples for people really was a lot easier for everyone to understand, kind of what we were talking about in some of those. So this is a quick activity. Obviously, we can't use the annotate feature since nobody has them. But we do what we call kind of like emoji check-ins from time to time. And so if you use the chat box, you'll see there's a little smiley face you can click on, and you can, look through a whole 100 different, little smiley faces that there are. So put in just kind of how your day is going today, how you're feeling kind of at this moment. And I won't be offended if you, put a mad face for something else that happened. But it's important for people to just kind of see where other people are coming from and the kind of day that they're having. We do this a lot of times with pictures too. If you're ever on, when you're on a non-Zoom, you can put in little GIFs and stuff like that. And it's nice for people to be able to see some of the different, things that come up. Sometimes we have people who put pictures of, a big trash can on fire, and you can tell how their day's going. So it's just kind of fun to see some of those different things in meetings at our association. Other people can sometimes see it and they're like, why are some people putting trash cans and other people are putting beaches? What are you guys doing? So it's just kind of a little fun thing to do. We have a kind of mix. People seem to be very happy. Tired always seems to be one of the popular ones. I know at ours, if we're doing something, on a Thursday or Friday, we get 1 million people that put the little, sleeping one. One of the other things that we do, so we do this with our staff. We do this with our association team. We do this at a lot of our openings for meetings and stuff like that, just to get a baseline of where people are coming from. And then we do this with the kids when they come into our programs. So we have little charts and they just have, 4 very basic faces on them: the happy, the sad, and then there's also the mad, angry, upset. And anyone who kind of just, all they have to do is walk up and they just pick a face. Anyone who picks that, red upset person, somebody will come and just check in with them later, just to kind of get a feel for they might just need an extra minute to, talk about something that happened earlier in the day, or kind of give a little detail or just have somebody listen to them. So it can be used for kind of any range of abilities, and you could take it kind of as basic as you want. We've had ones that we made people actually draw their own, body faces and, that kind of thing. I'm not a drawer, so I don't like that one, but could always mix things up. So some of the other ones that for relationship building, a couple of the activities that I love and we always do. One of them's hard because one, you do have to be able to be seen on the video in order to do it. So I don't know if if anyone is able to put their camera on for just this small section right here. And it's okay if you're eating or doing whatever you're doing too. If you're not able to, that's perfectly fine too. But we've tried to move a lot of our activities to things that you can do virtually in our virtual world we're living in right now. But a lot of them are a lot better when they're in person. So some of the ones that we've done, we cross the line. That's just a quick activity where, and I've done this all the way from our toddler group all the way to I made our CEO and our advisory boards do this one, which was pretty entertaining. But really it is stand on 2 sides of the room, and anyone who, the thing relates to, you just cross over into the, the other side. So it says, very basic things to get to know people as, can speak more than one language, you would cross over. So when you're doing it with toddlers, those kids are running around, trying to get some energy out. The adults are nice, sauntering across the room. And so for that, and the nice thing is, you could say something like that, has lived in another state. And then when they get there, they could share with someone where they've lived. So it's just a kind of quick way to get people moving and to also kind of get them to know a little, a couple things about each other. Categories is very similar, except for you want to be careful with the categories you pick when you do something like that. So that's usually in a big group of people. you give a category like favorite season, and everyone has to walk around the room and group with people who like the same season as them. And then you should have, hopefully when you come to seasons, you should have 4 groups of people. Sometimes you have more than that. But you pick categories, it can even be, birth month or favorite color and just kind of some basic things. If you open it up too broad to things, you might have, 14 different groups of people, all because, their favorite drink might be, very different from everybody else's. But it's a nice way also to have group people, get along, like, hey, favorite kind of genre to read. And then you have people, oh, hey, had no idea you love mysteries too. Let's chat about that sometime. So just a nice way to kind of see common interests with people. And people love to talk about themselves. So who we've learned in life. So kind of giving people open-ended things to be able to share stuff about themselves works out really easily. Rapid fire is the other one that's really easy to do in a group with kids or a group with adults. I'll do a quick one right now. So typically you're all standing together and you give a topic, and as quickly as possible, everybody just gives an answer to the question. I always ask the question, I give people a couple seconds to think about it because some people get nervous, even though there's no wrong answer and you can always pass. So we'll use the chat box for this one. But so the question is going to be your favorite vacation location. So you can just post your favorite vacation location in the chat. And I love vacations, so I always go with something like that. I feel like it makes people happy to talk about vacations, especially when it's winter time. A lot of people have gone way more places than me. Excellent. I love the beach. So anywhere that has the beach is perfect with me. So it could be, very, very quick questions. A lot of times they'll do, favorite foods, favorite, when you're doing it with kids, you can do a lot of fun things, favorite TV show. And then they all, oh, I can't believe you like that TV show too. And really making sure that the staff is participating with the kids or the group that's, doing the activity. Because they love to see that, but we're trying to build relationships within each other and also within the adults to the kids. And the last activity I have on here is Me Too, not related to the Me Too movement at all, just happened to end up with the same name. But really, and this is a fun one because people can just share different things. So typically it's done in a room, and we've done this virtually as well. That you just kind of give a topic, and if it relates to you too, you stand up and say, me too, as enthusiastic as possible. And like I said, we have our CEO group do this. They're very enthusiastic as well. But just say thing, I have a brother, and, people that have the same thing as you, can kind of get up there too. And we'll, we toss it around the room so everyone has an opportunity to actually say one of them. So it's not just all coming from whoever's leading it. But that people, might come up with, hey, I love to hike, and they didn't realize, oh, there's a bunch of other people that do too. So it's really helped people find common interests. I'll tell you, since we started doing these relationship building things within our staff teams and kind of building the communities themselves at each of the kind of program sites that we work at, our behavior issues went down, and our staff morale and kind of staff teams themselves, especially working with the consider the younger generation, has gotten so much better. We had better retention the first 2 years that we started some of these program components, and that the kids actually felt like they were having a really good time. And in some of the times when we bring these and we consider them, little lessons, they don't consider them lessons, they consider them fun games that we're playing. And so these are some of the basic, relationship building ones, but we kind of created activity books that we have for every area. So we have activities where kids can learn to, make little emotion people, and how they, talk about their emotions, and how they understand, listening to a story, how people felt in certain situations. So very open-ended with a lot of them, but kind of goes through from the very beginning to building the relationship, to really kind of the group dynamics and building a group, to then obviously being able to work together to role model these things for the people that they work with. But that was a very fast overview of all of our character development kind of work within those 5 areas.
Thank you so much, Stacy. So now, if my cursor will work, I kind of just want to shift. So Stacy shared some really great examples of how this work, the Character Development Learning Institute, and just the character development curriculum reaches the direct care staff. So this would be early childhood staff, before and after school staff, day camp and overnight camp staff, as well as program areas such as aquatics, gymnastics, sports and rec, other things. So how does this actually come out in practice? So the first thing, and Kim and Stacey sort of both touched on this, is that character development and the 4 core values are just a part of the culture at the Granite Y. They live in our daily behaviors, actions, and attitudes. As Kim was sharing, we use the 4 core values to like filter like decision making, or if are we sticking true to what, like, so that is like it's in what we do. And with the different program areas, there's some specific things that are happening. So I just wanted to share some of those. For the overnight camps and the day camps, there's really specific targeted training that's happening at the start of the camp season. Last year, we trained some upwards of 150 camp counselors and leadership staff in the topics that I'll dive into what those are at the start of the camp season. It's the culture of camp in general. There's a lot of relationship activities and relationship building activities that Stacey was sharing, and just in the list goes on and on of what those activities look like that are happening with the staff teams, and then also throughout the summer with the campers. And using, there's just this, character development is really strengths-based and positive focused model where the veteran staff who have been around longer are mentors to newer staff, and they are like encouraged to call each other out for modeling the behavior. And then when we have like LIT and CIT, so like those counselor and training programs, that's like the youth are encouraged to also become leaders in that area. And then there are character rockstar awards given weekly. So at like the camp ceremonies every Friday, they shout out kids that are doing awesome things around this. And then it really just empowers like the kids to be proud of doing that. And in childcare, there's similar things happening, but it looks a little bit different, obviously. So when I say childcare, I'm talking about the year-round early learning programs and then the school year before and after programs. And so for that, there are specific trainings that we do 3 times a year that is association-wide. So the staff get to interact with each other from across the branches and get to know sort of what's going on in all the different areas. And then in the staff meeting, Stacey touched on this, at every staff meeting, we have a monthly curriculum that we have a yearly curriculum that has monthly components to every staff meeting where we, will introduce an area of character development. There's assessments that every staff person will do that's like a reflection tool to say, like, how am I doing with this? Where are my areas of struggle? Where can I look for help if I want to get better? They work on personal development and goal setting in each of the areas, and then we'll do different activities. For example, January, we rolled out empathy. And so we shared some videos of what empathy is. If you haven't seen Brene Brown's RSA animate of what is empathy, I'm sure Stacey can find it really quickly and put it in the chat. It's like, so that video to me, I think of that one all the time, like what it is, because it's sort of such a nebulous topic, and giving really concrete examples of how to implement and model empathy for youth. And there also, during those staff meetings, we shout out staff that are character rock stars. And I know from doing this with my staff over the last 2.5 years that it really makes a difference to them to be recognized for working so hard in this. And then it's really embedded in the curriculum. So in the early learning, there is a part of the curriculum, the weekly lesson plans of like how the teachers as young as toddlers, how are they integrating each of the core values? How are they integrating character development? What are they doing? Why are they selecting books that they're picking? So it's really about the intentionality of it. And then they do the Character Rockstar Awards with the youth in the programs, and as well as a Character Rockstar of the Year award, which I remember there was a child who had received it the previous year, and he came in the fall, and he was just so excited, like, to share like how he was going to help another kid become the character rock star. And just, you know, this is, I think what is so interesting about this is how it empowers the direct care staff and the youth to really take this on and own it themselves. And I think that kind of speaks to how it's been, how the success has been. So moving on. So kind of what are the training topics that we explore when I say we're providing all these trainings? One, as Stacy said, there's the specific 3.5-hour character development training. That's obviously, wouldn't it be so great if we could do that amount of training all the time? Well, the reality is we don't have 3.5 hours all the time to train staff. So it's like we have shorter versions of it. We might do a shorter piece, but then we bring in other things, which is why this is what sort of like gets me all excited about this, is because when I learned when I learned about what character development was, I was like, this resonates with so much of the training that I've been doing for the last like decade with childcare professionals. But there's so, you know, so how can we take that very specific thing and also incorporate all these other things that are really important for that are related to this, that are important for our staff to know. So we do specific trainings around self-care, stress management, compassion fatigue, and burnout prevention. We know the people that are, you know, working all day with youth are the people that are just there. They get burnt out very easily if they don't have a, you know, if they don't have a set of tools. And a lot of the staff that we, and I know I'm not going to iterate on it too much because I'm sure a lot of you are familiar, you know, with a lot of the staff that we have varying ACE scores, have varying toolboxes to deal with their own stresses in life. So we really take responsibility of like helping our staff with these skills. We also have a program that's called CATCH, which is a coordinated approach to child health, which is physical activity programming. So we do provide training on that. As I said, the 5 areas of character development. And then these other 2 terms, which we use, and I learned mostly about them actually through the work with Pine Tree and the ACEs master training work. And ACE interface is this idea of self-efficacy, which is my actions affect the world around me and I have the skills and support to succeed. And positive self-view, which is despite anything that happens to me, I am inherently good and deserve a good life. I mean, we're not in a room, but if we were, I would ask you to raise your hand to think of like how many people in your life, children or adults, do you know that don't have a positive view of themselves, that despite what happens to them, that they are still inherently good. I think a lot of people really struggle with that. And so, you know, that's a big piece of it. We also work a lot with self-regulation, helping kids regulate in the 4 different areas of regulation: emotional, cognitive, behavioral, and psychological regulation, but also staff. Managing those things. How are they, you know, staying hydrated and keeping their cool when they're around kids and not letting their emotions get the better of them. And then in addition to this, we also are working with ACEs trainings, and we have a lot of our staff have gone through youth mental health first aid, which is a really specific program. And then we also just through our connections with the Dover Mental Health Alliance, we just had 125 childcare staff who did a suicide prevention training. So we spend a lot of time in the training realm, because if the staff, we need the staff to be successful, they need to have common language and the toolboxes that they need. So what is the result of the amount of training that we are providing and encouraging staff to be engaged with? Well, first thing is that the staff have these resiliency toolboxes that they can draw from that will enhance their own personal resilience, but also the resilience of the youth that they're working with. And then we call them resilience actions. So these are like the specific daily words, actions, behaviors, and attitudes that are going to help foster and cultivate that sense of resiliency. And I like, I'm really excited to share this next part, which is, sorry if it looks really strange. This is a screen grab from a Zoom training that Stacey and I did last summer with the day camp counselors. I'm just going to call it a few of them. We had the staff break up into different groups to talk about what are things that they do that after receiving all this training, what are the things that they do now that you know what category it might fall under that are intentional uses of building resilience. So something like celebrating small victories throughout the day, don't let them slip away, using positive word choice, giving kids a chance to speak up and share their feelings, Notice when someone is experiencing heightened emotions. Empowering campers to speak up about how they're doing, make kids a part of the solution. And that's a really big one. Asking how a child wants to feel support. If kids are struggling to get attached to their peers, facilitating large and small group activities that might help with that connection. Providing a safe space if a child or a student, I'm so used to calling them child camper, whatever the label we're using, if they want to share something that is private, making an option for a kid who needs to take a beat. So these are all things, and what I think is so powerful of this, and then one more slide, it looks a little different of this, is that these are things that, you know, a 20-year-old camp counselor came up with because they are hearing sort of like the why behind it, as in WHY behind it. And they are, so to me, that's what the power of this is that if they now have ownership and realizing that their actions really are making a difference. Stacy and I also had the opportunity last summer to go out to our overnight camps, which was in person. And so this is just, I just typed it in from handwritten dictations. I just highlighted a few that really stuck out to me of things that these counselors and camp leaders are doing around leadership, around resilience. So modeling inclusion of newcomers, leading games and activities that allow campers to self-reflect and discover who they are. I mean, I don't know many like 21-year-olds that are like, yes, that's what I do. I think it's just amazing that they are engaged in this sort of deep way. Finding ways to redirect undesired behaviors without harming self-worth, separating the behavior from the action from the person. Checking in with fellow staff members, as we've shared, a big part of this is how we interact with one another and engage in those 5 areas with each other. Reaching out to campers who seem isolated and just generally being trustworthy and reliable. So I can't overstate just how much like this is coming from the people that are doing the work every day. And I think a lot of times, you know, these wonderful theories and frameworks are developed at this high level, and then what actually happens with it. And this model really takes it on the ground so that this is how we're having interactions with families. When we're talking about families who might be, you know, in a high, like a high ACE population of a family, that we're giving them even tools. And I think that is has been pretty impactful for us. So we wanted to make sure we save some time for comments and questions, but just kind of going through what we have shared with you today. The Resilience Initiative, as part of the strategic plan, is grounded in this belief that if you have a network of support and you have the right tools, that you can live the life that you want. And the character development is the primary vehicle that drives that work. And that children and all people are inherently good, and they need those caring and competent adults in order to thrive. And that in order to make an impact with others, we have to look inward. And I think this is something that we've heard a million times, but really, you can't help others until you help yourself. You can't draw from an empty cup. And it starts with being open to the idea that maybe there are things about yourself that you want to evaluate and reflect upon. And as an organization, as a youth serving organization, we have the responsibility to make sure that our staff have the tools. And, you know, we have some incredibly talented staff that come to the Y with, you know, impressive resumes and wonderful experience, but we can't assume that people have these tools unless that we are intentionally providing it and modeling it and allowing them the opportunity to develop that. And, you know, this is something that the next one is something I think a lot of us believe, and I hope is that regardless of the life path that you come from, all of this skill building is helpful. So it's not necessarily that this work is specifically catered to people with high ACE scores or who are coming from a lower socioeconomic home. This is for anybody who, you don't get through this life without feeling stress and hitting some bumps along the way. And so these skills and building on this is going to improve quality of life. And it's about the daily actions, words, intentions, and thoughts. I think that so many people get caught up in that there's no quick fix, there's no overnight solution, because there just isn't. This is the, you know, well-being of a society is not something that you can, you know, fix in a day, but it's about showing up every day and trying. And that's what we really impart with our staff, is that you know, if they're coming in with an open mind and with intention to really be a positive influence in the life of a child, that their work is making a difference and that it really truly matters. So with that, do we have any questions, comments, or thoughts that anybody would like to share?
Sorry, there was a couple things in the chat box that you were talking, so you didn't see them. But yeah, so when it comes to, you know, sharing this information and trainings and stuff like that, we're happy to do it. Obviously, there'd be some things we'd have to just kind of work through and stuff like that. But we really are trying to get this out there, you know, more to people and really, you know, learn from other programs as well. We've done a lot of work on camp and childcare, but you know, and some of the rec stuff we just started getting into, but it's kind of a different world. So seeing where this can be adapted as well to other, you know, programming areas. And we just launched it with some of our fitness staff as well. And it's very different when you're working with, you know, older adults and things like that, but it can be adapted to, you know, kind of everything. So.
This is Mark. We still have time for questions if people do have questions. We're running about, well, actually, we're running right on time, but there are about 10 minutes left if we need it.
Yes, please feel free to share it. Like you said, comments or questions. I'm going to just ask. I'm going to flip to the next slide. That doesn't mean stop asking questions or don't ask them if you have them, but we'd really love, because we are working hard, and I think a lot of organizations working on this, of really being able to share the story of what it is we do as an organization. And so it's helpful for us to know, like, sort of what you found as a takeaway from this, so that when we look at either presenting this information or sharing more of our story with our communities, what is resonating. Because I think that a lot of, in a world where, you know, we're seeking collaboration and partnership as a whole, I think, you know, I don't know how many of you are at this session that were attending the Pine Tree session earlier, but Mark shared a lot about the coordinated response that's happening in Portsmouth, and we're doing a lot of that work in Stratford County with the Dover Mental Health Alliance. That, you know, we can't do this alone. We are all in it together, and, you know, there are opportunities that we can all kind of, what is that, about the tide raising all ships? That's sort of what we're here to do. So yes, I'll stop talking if anybody else has questions or thoughts.
Katie and Stacy, I want to say thank you very much. Your passion, both of you, your expertise and your passion on this really comes through. I think some of you are probably doing some of this work. And if we can help you train your staff, we are happy to do that. We just need to figure out how we would make it work. Katie's right. We do want to share it. I think, or Stacy said that we want to share what we're doing, and we want to learn from others so that we can all do the best we can for our youth. So thank you.
Thanks, Michelle, for that comment. And Erica, I have to say, you brought up a great point. I'll say when I first started this work, you know, I was doing it for my job, but I've used so many skills in my own children, and kind of, I'm a little more empathetic in certain situations than I might not have been before, and helping them kind of, and I have young kids. So I'm sure I'm going to be using all these skills as they continue to, you know, test me and things like that as we get older. So thank you very much for that.
Well, I vote everybody gets 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, look at that.
I'm going to stop the recording so that we have a record